Hello, my strong friends. This video is all about breathing, bracing, and wearing belts. One of the most common questions that I get is, Meg, when can I start wearing a belt? And in this video, I'm not only gonna tell you when you can start using a belt, but also I'm gonna give you the secrets to know before you start using it, okay? Because there is a little bit of a barrier to entry before you slap a belt on. Let's first talk about the different kinds of belts that you can choose. First up is my preferred favorite kind of belt. This is a nylon and Velcro belt. Very good ASMR. So this is a lightweight belt. Usually it's pretty affordable. This one's from my brand, Hevico, and I love using this belt. It's great for dynamic movements if you're a weightlifter. It's great for squats, deadlifts, all of it. I love it. Now, if you're a powerlifter, you might be more accustomed to something that's heavier duty. These are powerlifting style, heavy leather suede belts. So they're super thick when compared to the other. Usually you'll see this in a prong enclosure or even a lever enclosure. And last, we have a tapered bodybuilding style belt. This is kind of old school, more kind of like an in-between those two options. So those are the belt options. All are available, I'll link them down below. Before you just slap on a belt, regardless of which one you choose, you do need to understand how to breathe and brace in order to create some intra-abdominal pressure. So there's space between your ribs and your torso, that's where your guts are, and you hold pressure. When you breathe in, pressure increases and it expands. When you breathe out, the pressure decreases. That's always moving. And so you might have noticed people who are lifting really heavy light weights, they hold their breath. They squat and then they let it out. There are a couple different ways that people do this, but usually they do that. They hold the breath during the lift and then breathe out. So what they're doing there is increasing intra-abdominal pressure. They use the Valsalva maneuver and it closes off so that no air escapes out of their mouth. And then they brace their abdominal muscles. So imagine if you wanted to brace, imagine I was about to punch you right in the gut. You kind of contract isometrically all of those muscles in your abs, and then you squat. So it's a lot to remember, but you can easily practice it before you invest in a belt, and you can get really good at it. It's gonna make you stronger. It's gonna mean you can lift more weight more comfortably, and over time, lifting more sets, more reps at higher weights is going to mean you're gonna get muscle gain and strength gain. Ooh, I have an experiment. Okay, let's see. I don't know if this experiment is gonna work, but let's show you. Okay, so we have a non-branded can right here. Okay, and we're gonna take this weight. So we have this can here. Just so we're clear, you are not a can, okay? Oh, do we have any full cans of anything in the fridge? Yeah. Okay, I'll go get one. Hold on, I'll be back. Okay, I got my full can. The full can signifies pressure. So it's filled up. Imagine if you took a breath in and you increase the pressure in your core. It's filled up and there's lots of pressure. I can place load on top of this can and it stays up perfectly. Now this can is empty. Ryan drank it. How many? I don't know how many we can do. I'm sure it's gonna hold something. Oh God. Hold on, I can do more. We have 3 kilos on. Will it withstand 25 more pounds? Okay, it did it. Okay, my control. Will it hold it? Oh, I sure hope it does. You see that? There are better examples of this experiment, but you can see the can represents pressure. And so when that pressure is full, when there's space is filled and the pressure is pushing against the sides of the can, it can hold this weight easily. The empty can doesn't have any pressure pushing against the sides, it's just empty air. So that example kind of illustrates why we take in the breath, we have pressure pushing outside, in the front and in the back, and we press against our belt so that our core is rigid like the full can. Let's see if it holds this one. Let's see. You think it will? That's 44 pounds. That's amazing. All right, remember our can. Of course you remembered, I literally just showed you the can. And how I said that there's pressure pushing against the edge of the can in all directions. And that's what we want to recreate with our torso. So you may have heard of people talk about belly breathing, where they're just breathing in, their belly is the only thing expanding. Or you might have heard of something called the chest breather, where you're breathing into the chest, you're kind of shrugging up a little bit. What we want is a little bit of chest expansion, a little bit of belly expansion, but we want 360 breath. So watch my ribs when I belly breathe, and then when I do 360 expansion. So I'm expanding out into the ribs. When I have my belt slapped on, I'm going to be pushing in all directions against the belt so that it helps create a better pressure container. So when I have a lot of weight on my back, I'm able to squat the world. Valsalva maneuver, I never even met her. No, that don't make sense. Okay, the Valsalva maneuver is a strategy that we use to kind of close off the space by our vocal cords. I think it's called our larynx or glottis. And you basically take your air in and you gotta put a lid on the pressure. So to put a lid on the pressure, you kind of close that space between your vocal cords. And to practice doing that, I like to have people say the word hut, and do a t, hard T. Do the word hut, and you can even do it staccato, so you kind of get practice like closing that off. So it will sound like this, hut, 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 hut. And so that part where I close off the air from escaping out of my mouth, that is the Valsalva maneuver. So when you're squatting, it kind of looks like this. Take the air in, hut. So see how I kind of close it off kind of forcefully, and then I even naturally brace just because I'm so used to doing it. That's the Valsalva maneuver. Okay, where do you wear the belt? Now, some of us are vertically challenged. I'm 5'3", I know everybody says I look taller, but I only have so much space between the top of my pelvis and the bottom of my ribs, so this belt does not fit me. I put my belt on, okay, it does, just barely, last prong. I put my belt just right in the space in between. This is pretty large compared to on my body, but some larger people, some taller people might be able to experiment. I know lots of taller people like to put their belt closer up higher on their ribs when they're deadlifting, and then alternatively have it a little bit lower kind of on the belly button line when they're squatting. It really is personal preference. It'll be somewhere between your ribs and your pelvis. Experiment and see what works best for you. When you're choosing where to put your belt, you also want to think about how tight you crank down on your belt. Now think about it. You're trying to expand, so you need a little bit of room in the belt to do that. I like to just make sure I have like finger widths distance away. Like when I tighten my belt, I could still kind of squeeze my fingers through in between my skin and the belt. So keep that in mind. It doesn't make any sense to have it so tight and so cranked down. It's not gonna help you lift any heavier than it being comfortably placed and able to expand, okay? So don't go cranking down, don't go too tight to start when you're first putting your belt on. Okay, next let's talk about posture. The belt is gonna help you cue ribs over pelvis. I don't want to squat an extension like this. That doesn't seem very strong, even though I see y'all on Instagram doing this one. I see you, and it looks cute for the most part, unless someone who knows. You want the ribs over the pelvis. Another cue that you can think of is think about decreasing the space between the bottom of your ribs and the top of your pelvis. Sometimes you are able to activate the glutes by tucking them in just slightly. And what this does, is when combined with intra-abdominal pressure exercise, the breath, the Valsalva maneuver, the good posture, it means that you can keep this torso rigid. Because my torso can move in all these different ways, I don't want to be moving like this when I'm pulling a heavy deadlift or when I'm squatting. I don't want that. I want this to stay neutral, as they say, or in the neutral range. I don't want a lot of movement when I'm under the load. 1, it's not gonna be very comfortable. 2, it might actually hurt. And 3, it's gonna mean that I can lift more efficiently, which means that it takes less time to get a heavy deadlift up or less time to get a heavy squat up. Oh, I didn't notice you over there. I like to wear a belt when I overhead press. So this is a good segue to let you know that typically we see people wearing a belt when they squat, deadlift, do anything overhead. So sometimes clean and jerk, sometimes snatch. Not all the time, but sometimes snatch. And some people, well, I like to use a belt when I overhead press too, but some people will even use a belt when they bench. Not really my style, but I don't judge, okay? A couple things with when you're choosing to wear your belt is you do wanna have some warm-ups that are beltless and then transition into your belt training. So I'm not gonna take the bar, even though you just saw me literally taking the bar with a belt. I'm usually not gonna take the bar with a belt. I'm not gonna take my earlier warm-ups with a belt. Usually I'll slap on my belt for my working sets, my heaviest sets, or even my last, maybe second to last warm-up, depends on the lift. Have you ever seen someone pee pants city while they're lifting? Well, that has a lot to do with intra-abdominal pressure, has a lot to do with just being stronger than what your pelvic floor can accommodate for, and doesn't always mean that you need to be concerned. So what's happening there is it's a pressure management. I don't even want to call it dysfunction. It's just a stress incontinence. So sometimes when the weight is so heavy, sort of like when your grip fails you first, when the weight is so heavy and you've done the Valsalva maneuver to increase pressure, the pressure, hopefully it's going out against the belt, hopefully you're managing it properly, but sometimes when you're lifting and it's like 98%, 101%, the pressure escapes out the pelvic floor. So you pee a little bit. Men sometimes experience fecal incontinence, and I know everybody watching it has farted when they've lifted. Grid, you haven't? Never. Liar, liar. If you're someone who's experiencing incontinence in earlier sets, in working sets, in warm-up sets, I like to say if you're peeing when you're at like 70, even 80% of your max lifts, definitely go see a pelvic floor physical therapist. It is a fascinating visit. I mean, for someone like me, I don't know if everyone's gonna think it's fascinating, but I learned so much from my pelvic floor PT and I found it to be really helpful. They can also teach you pressure management strategies. Maybe you do ditch the Valsalva maneuver, you ditch a belt, and you could even hiss out and pull up on the pelvic floor, but all of that is in a different video. We can cover it another time. Let me know if you have more questions around that or anything else that I covered in this one. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was a commenter requested video. We do have a brand new company. It's called Hevico. So check out our belts that we have at Hevico. It is my favorite belt. I will be using it in all the clips that you guys see in this video that are overlaid. And I love it. It is $40. Is that the price? Yeah, that's the price, $40. Or is it 44? Anyway, I'm gonna put it on the screen. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.